Are you looking for an e-bike that's foldable, compact, lightweight, and one that you probably don't have to modify? If you are, the DYU V1 may be the bike for you. I'm John Holmes with Holmes Hobbies, and today we are going to review the DYU V1. I received this DYU V1 directly from F-wheel. They did send it to me for free, probably because they want me to do a review on it. So full disclosure, I didn't pay for this bike. I have so many e-bikes, I really don't need just one more in the fleet. However, if you saw a review of the DYU D1, this one's pretty much replaced that around the shop. So what I'm going to do is talk about, the features of this guy, why you would want it, why you may not want it, and hopefully you can make a decision on whether or not this would be the right bike for you. So this is the American version of the bike, which means it has these pegs instead of pedals on the bottom. This one retails currently on eBay for $620 with free shipping, or you can get the European model, which has pedals and a chain right here for, I think it was $690 or $670 with free shipping on that. So depending on where you are, which model you'll need to get to comply with your laws. But here in the US, especially in Missouri, we don't have to have pedals, and this can fly under the radar essentially as a bicycle at 20 miles an hour or a moped at 30 miles an hour, which it doesn't get nearly that fast, nor would I want to get this thing on the streets. So the first thing that I did was I tested the speed of this on the flats with me weighing about 160 pounds, not with a fresh charge, but with a charge that just has the fresh charge knocked off of it. We got 16 miles an hour, which corroborates with what DYU says that the maximum speed is going to be. Now, the reason why you would probably want this bike is for what's called the last mile commute, or something to where you're not going more than maybe 5-10 miles tops. And this definitely fits inside of a trunk. The handlebars fold down, super easy. There you go, that's the entire process. And we put it right back up, a little quick there, and it is ready to go. I can get this in and out of my Subaru in roughly 20 seconds and be ready to go. You just press a button and she is gone. So we have our light switch up here, turn the lights on and off as you can see. We have a brake switch which works whether or not the lights are turned on. So we turn the lights back on, we have a running lamp, and then as you can see there's also a flashing of the brake lamp too. That's kind of neat. The headlight seems pretty decent. It's for a 16 mile an hour vehicle, it's probably about right. We also have a horn, and we also have a feature called cruise control on this, where if you hold the gas, or whatever it would be, the throttle, for more than about 5 seconds, maybe 7 seconds, it stays on, which kind of got me the first time that I was riding it. I was not expecting it, and I kind of ride these things a little bit to the edge. I mean, because let's be honest, it's a 16 mile an hour rig, so I'm going to brake at the very last moment. Almost got me in trouble because I let off the throttle and the cruise control was on, and I almost ran into an object because, I was expecting a little bit of coasting. But fortunately, they have a brake lever which cuts off the throttle, and also if you kind of blip the throttle, it'll turn the cruise control off too. So if you get one of these, keep that in mind, that if you start cruising for a couple of seconds, the throttle will stay on, and that could be dangerous. So this one is the US model with the pegs. The reason why I want to mention that is because these things constantly come loose and bend. It's not so bad with my weight, 160 pounds, but Dallas, which you saw in the D1 video, what did he say? He weighs, 180, let's be honest, 210, I think is what he said. And he's been riding this a lot for little commutes, go to the store, go across the street to his in-laws' house from the shop. And he has bent these down. They just get loose really fast. So, you have to keep on that. You have to keep tightening them. What I would actually like to do is just put some BMX pegs on there, like some flatland style, the really big diameter ones. Pretty sure that it has the same size axle as pegs would use. So it would be, pretty much a no modification bolt on. Maybe some considerations on that, so your mileage will vary. However, these just aren't quite enough for a big boy. They're not quite enough if you want to do any sort of jumping off of curbs. With these sketchy tall handlebars, it's not like I want to do that anyway, but just to give you a forewarning. Now, it does have shocks front and rear. They don't have any dampening to them, so they're kind of springy. It is better than a rigid, however, which is nice. It also has disc brake mounts on the fork and on the hub on the front, which is really cool if you want to add disc brakes in the future. But as it sits, it's actually a pretty decent bike. This one has a lot better acceleration than the D1 model did. However, the top speed feels about the same, maybe a touch faster. You know, the D1 says that it goes like 30 kilometers an hour, which is a huge lie. It does not go that fast. Even after we modded the shunt on there, it just doesn't have the speed on 36 volts. This guy going downhill will get up to 20 under throttle, but on the flats, just because it's literally 250 watt machine, it only gets to about 16 miles an hour. Maybe 17 if you pump up the tires. These tires are maybe a little soft right now. This has a 10 amp hour, 36 volt battery, and that gives us about 20 miles of range with average riding, let's say, you know, basically with me, 160 pounds riding around, mostly on pavement, mostly flat with some hills here and there. Easily 20 miles of range, maybe more if you do what's called hypermiling, where you let it coast down hills and you don't just, you know, go balls out the entire time, or whatever your favorite acronym for that is. So my conclusions on this, as compared to the D1 in particular, if you want a bike that you don't want to modify and you want to have halfway decent performance getting around, this is the one. It takes hills a lot better. It is almost twice as expensive as the D1. However, you can just go with it. It's got a little charge port right here that you plug in, and charges relatively fast. If I remember correctly, about a 3-hour charge or something like that. Not too shabby. And it only has a 250 watt motor on it though. So even visually looking at it compared to the D1, which is a weaker bike, this one has a much smaller motor. It looks like it's literally half the stator of it. Now, I haven't taken the motors apart yet to see, but the one on the D1 version does have 500 listed on the side. So I think it's a 500 watt motor, which means we can push it a lot harder than that. And this one's a 250 watt motor, which we can still push harder, but it's a very safe estimate that, you know, you could basically ride a hill all day long with it at 250 watts and it wouldn't overheat. If you want to modify the bike and you're willing to throw in new batteries and a new controller and stuff like that, I don't think this would actually be a good model for you, because by the time you spend the amount of money on it, you're going to be limited by this hub motor back here, since it's a smaller hub motor. So I wouldn't actually go for much modification on this. I am going to modify the shunt in the next video, which will end up making more heat in the motor, and we'll get to see if there's any better acceleration. So that's going to be a little fun test. I just like to modify things sometimes, and when you have a bike like this that's so close to having great torque, it's at least worth a shot to modify the shunt on there. And we'll get into that on the next video. I won't get into that on this video yet, but just a little bit about the bike. Basically, you can access all the electronics from the back if you do have a problem. There's 2 screws right here, which I've already taken out. They are Phillips number 2. And this little taillight slides out. And literally everything is just crammed into the inside. A bundle of wires, the battery pack, which it looks like they've got a little loop on the battery pack that it can be pulled out with. You know, maybe if your hand is small enough to get in there and reach it. It's about from here to here, best as I can tell. But comparing these controllers, this is the controller that came with the D1 model. This is the V1. And looking at the case of the controller, you can tell that the D1 actually has a much larger case. One large difference is you can see this heat spreader bar that the D1 has. So these are both going to be 6 MOSFET models. However, the V1 here, even though it's a slightly faster bike that seems to have much better off-the-line torque, this controller does not have very good heat dissipation. There's nowhere for the MOSFETs. There's no heat spreader bar that bolts into the case. Now, since it's shoved in this tube anyway, how good is the heat dissipation going to be? Not that great. So that's at least a consideration to have for this bike, in my opinion, is there's going to be limits on this controller. So just modifying the shunt probably isn't going to get us very far before this guy blows up. But that's my job. That's what I'm going to do. So we're just going to cram all these wires back in here for now. And I do hope that this video helped you out, at least with some of the features, the specs, and why you would want this model. Like I said, this has pretty much replaced the D1 at the shop for basic commuting. It's just a little bit faster. It's just a little bit nicer for getting to the store and back. And of course, now I can't seem to get these wires crammed back in. They're literally just crammed in there like a rat's nest. It's pretty cool to see. That, you know, that's production. That's production quality there. All right, there we go. Just shoves right back in. No big deal. Nobody will know. It'll be our secret. So, you know, for the average commuter, non-modification sort of crowd, I would definitely recommend this, especially for the price. It's not too bad at $620, maybe a little bit on the higher side, but you still couldn't get a V1 and modify it for less cost than this. You know, if you wanted equal performance, you would still end up paying, you know, a little bit more. You'd end up having like $700 or $800 in it, I think, by the time it's all said and done. So for the non-modification crowd, definitely would recommend this. You know, relatively inexpensive folder, has plenty of torque for even steep hills. At my weight, at least, your mileage will vary if you are a heavier guy than me, but you know, just in general, this could really keep a lot of miles off your car, or let's say if you've got parking costs downtown and you want to just, you know, commute in a mile or two to downtown, you know where some free parking space is, this is perfect for that sort of job. Even if you want to go 10 miles, I don't think I'd want to ride this guy for 10 miles. The seat could be a little bit more comfortable for that sort of action. But, you know, in a pinch, 10, 20 miles, yeah, it'll totally do it. So, you know, that's my final thoughts on it. If you do have any specific questions about the bike that I missed, post them down below and I will do my best to get to them. If you want to see us modify this guy in the future, look out for the next video coming up where we modify the shunt and we will see what we can do from the stock bike. So as always, thanks for tuning in and have a good day.